Welcome back, guys. So today we're going to be talking about Thor Love and Thunder. Um, since I didn't really have a notepad with me, I don't really have an exact breakdown of everything, but I'll try and go over the bits and pieces that I feel were the most important and most memorable, as well as just give my thoughts and opinion on the movie. So we'll just start off with I'll get it out of the way, what I thought of the movie, and then I'll go into more depth. Honestly, I really liked it. Before I saw it, everyone had I saw everyone's reviews, and it was like very mixed, very split between critics and fans alike. Like I think the critic score is at like 65 or something like that right now, and the fan score is 85, I believe. I haven't checked it since like 2 days ago. Um, so I was a little nervous, but honestly, I don't even trust critics anymore. Like actual paid critics, I don't trust them. They have been wrong with everything lately, so I kind of trusted the audience score. And everyone's like, "Oh, it's too goofy," and Marvel's being too goofy, and I'm like, Thor doesn't work as a serious character, at least to me. Okay, Thor 1 was good. Thor 2, I think everyone can agree, is probably either the worst or one of the worst movies in all of Marvel's cinematic universe. It's just so bad, and they were trying to be so serious with him and everything like that. And I mean, there was other reasons it failed, like story elements and stuff like that, but it was just, I don't know. Thor definitely fits as the goofy character, to me at least. Like for me, when I watch Thor, I think of him as like this big buff, like doofy guy. I don't know why, I just do, and I love him for that. Um, but anyways, let's get into it. So the movie opens with Gore, Christian Bale, his backstory of him on his planet, and we find out that he was praying his whole um, civilization, like camp and everything. They were all praying to their god to save them, and even if then their death, it was worth it because eventually they would the gods would save them and reward them for their sacrifice. And Gore meets their god, and the god laughs at them and said, "There's no eternal reward for you. The reward is for us. It's your sacrifice to us." So he pretty much realizes he wasted his whole life, and his daughter's dead now for no reason. And he picks up the Necro Sword, I think is what it was called. I could be wrong. Um, and it corrupts the user, but gives you insane power. So he took that, and he killed the god. He cut its head off, and he vowed that all gods will die. And he sets out on his adventure. And then we cut to Thor with the Guardians of the Galaxy and talking about how he's in sorrow and stuff like that. And we have Korg talking about the story of the space Viking, and he just is moping around. Like there's a scene where all the Guardians are fighting in this pond, and he's just sitting there, just chilling on a rock, thinking. And then he said he meditates until someone asks they need his help to win this next battle. So, like right here, you can see the shot of him meditating. That's kind of what he's been doing until they ask if he can help them win the battle. Um, but it was a good opening. I liked Gore at the beginning. I thought it was an interesting beginning. So then after that, we jump to, I think Jane. I think we jump to Jane. Yeah, we go to Jane, and we find out that she has cancer. Um, she's in one of those MRI machines, and we find out she has stage 4, and she's only told, ooh, I think her name is Darcy. I could be so wrong, but I think that's who that is. It was the girl in WandaVision. But she tells her, and she says, well, you should pull the Space Viking card. Like, you should tell Thor, maybe he can help you. And she says, no, I want to fight this on my own way, which is going to her lab and researching it on her own. And she's at her lab, and 2 Norse mythology books call out to her. And she realizes maybe I should go to New Asgard. Because she reads the book and it talks about Mjolnir and Asgard and all that. So she decides to go to New Asgard. And she goes to New Asgard and finds the hammer, and the pieces start like rumbling and shaking, and lightning comes off of them, and we cut away. We do find out later, I'll just go over this now so I'm not jumping back and forth, I'll go over like one story at a time. So we do find out that Thor was watching over Jane and was like, can you promise me that you will never let her get her and you will always protect her? Like that's what Thor says to the hammer. and the hammer shows like it light up with its insignia. So that's like symbolizing that it was going to choose her if it ever needed to. So knowing she was going to die, it chose her, which was pretty cool. So that's pretty much that whole story, like what happened with her. And then we go to Thor and the Guardians going to leave the planet that they were on, and they see the God Butcher, and all these people are asking for help. All their gods are being killed, and Thor sees his friend, the nicest god you'll ever meet, he said, and it's this big creature. And he goes there and finds Sif, and she has her arm cut off, and she tells him that I think she tells him his name, yeah, Gore. She says Gore, the God Butcher, is trying to kill all gods, and he's like, well, that's not good. So he goes to New Asgard because she pretty much says he's going to go there next. And he arrives at New Asgard and he's already invading it, and he helps Valkyrie fend off the invasion. And then while he's fighting, he hears the I don't know, the whoosh noise from his hammer flying around, taking out all the enemies. And he starts, freaking out like, oh my god, my hammer's back. And then he sees Jane and freaks out like, Jane? And it's really funny. It was nice to have their little reunion again. And we get like a little glimpse of their backstory together and stuff like that, and how they parted ways and stuff. And it was kind of like a banter of who left who, really, because you left after the note, who says I didn't come back and stuff like that. But Gore ends up leaving with, I want to say like 15 something kids, and they set out on their quest to go save these kids. And that's pretty much where the whole bulk of the movie starts. And since he's on screen right now, I'll talk about Zeus. So they meet up with Zeus, and Zeus is an a-hole, honestly. And I was hype when Thor, well, I'm using air quotes, you can't see me, but kills him. And I was hype. Like, he goes to kill Thor. You think, not Thor, Korg. Oh my gosh, Korg. And Thor freaks out, and he grabs that lightning staff that Zeus uses, Thunderbolt, and he chucks it back at Zeus, and it goes straight through his chest and hits the chair, and then Zeus falls all the way down, supposedly to his death. And that was really cool. It was really cool to see Thor rage for a moment like that. That was awesome. So they take Thunderbolt, they all leave, and they go ride on his little like ship thing with the two screaming goats, and they go to the Shadow Dimension. Like, they go on their way to the Shadow Dimension. And they're going, and Thor and Jane rekindle their relationship. They start kissing and, rekindling their relationship, which was really nice. I'm glad that they got their closure and stuff like that. So then they do eventually get to the Shadow Dimension. They, like, slam into this moon, and then they get off. And they start exploring, and Jane finds out that that Gore has these plans to take Stormbreaker and use it to open the Gates of Eternity. So she runs out of the room, she grabs Stormbreaker and just chucks Stormbreaker out the window into deep space. And then Gore comes out and just ambushes them, wrapping them like with his, I don't even know what they are, like weird tentacle things, and trapping them, demanding Thor to call the axe back. Thor's like, no, homie, I'm not doing that. And he starts, I guess, roasting Valkyrie and Jane on their, more Valkyrie on her beliefs, and then Jane on the fact that, the gods are using her. They're not actually going to save her. And Thor ends up breaking loose because he sees Jane's about to, like, die because it's choking her out. And he summons Stormbreaker, and lightning shocks off. They all get free, and then a big fight ensues. Long story short, Gore ends up stabbing Valkyrie in the back with Thunderbolt, and they leave to get her help. And on the way back, Jane drops Mjolnir, and it makes her lose, like, her mighty Thor persona. And Thor sees her as, like, her sick self, and we find out the hammer is slowly killing her. And, Thor's not having that. He was not happy about that. So he tells her to stay behind and that he'll go fight Gore on his own. So he takes Thunderbolt and he teleports there. And then now we cut to Gore opening up the gates of eternity with Stormbreaker. And Thor appears and talks to the kids. And I thought this was honestly really cool. I did not expect this at all. He tells all the kids to grab weapons and what they want to do to defend themselves. And then he like says whoever holds these weapons shall have the power of Thor, and like gives them all the power of Thor. And I thought that was insanely cool. That was awesome. I didn't expect anything like that. That was really cool to see. So a big fight ensues, and they all fight the shadow monsters, and Thor goes and fights Gore. And when Thor's about to die, like Gore slams the sword down into him, and he catches it with his hands, and it's like cutting his hands, and then he gets knocked over by Jane's hammer. And Thor is rightfully upset because that means she's gonna die. And they fight him together. They end up breaking his sword, and he goes to like rebuild it, kind of like how Mjolnir's pieces come back together. He goes to summon it back together, and she takes her hammer, shoves it in the air, like after she absorbs all the pieces of it, and slams it into the ground, destroying all the pieces of the Necro Sword, and also I think destroying the hammer. I think it's implied that the hammer is destroyed too, because she turns back into her human form, and she's dying, like actually dying. She's gonna die very soon, and Gore walks through the gates of eternity and goes to make his wish, and Thor decides to turn his back on him, and Gore's like, "You dare turn your back on me?" He's like, "Yeah, I'd rather spend my last minutes with the person I love than talking to you." And he goes and sits with her, and he basically says like, "You have the choice to do this for love as well instead of like hate." He doesn't say hate, but I'm forgetting what exactly he said. And he ends up deciding to bring his daughter back. Now, at first, I thought it was his actual daughter, but then I remembered that when the camera pans up a little bit and it's going up, you can see the reflection of the water, and it's like a galaxy being with his daughter's hair, and then you see it in its regular form, like his daughter in her regular form. And then I was like, so is this just his daughter, just like something created in the image of his daughter? Because that's what I think it is. I think this creature created itself in its image of his daughter, not his actual daughter. So he got to at least see her one more time before he died and think it was her, but it wasn't. But we'll come back to that in just a minute. So Jane does die in Thor's arms, and she turns into god particles or whatever they call it, like when Odin died. So that's kind of like the wrap up of the movie. She dies. They go back. They celebrate, like, you know, everyone won. And then we see Thor with the daughter of Gore, the supposed daughter. Again, I still think it's just created in the image of her. It's not actually her. So we see him taking care of her, and she has powers, which I feel like if she had powers, they wouldn't have died on that planet. And they said with the powers imbued by a god. So I do think that Eternity is that girl, just in kid form. So that's what I think. I thought it was really cool to see them together, and that's the tagline, Love and Thunder. So Thor's thunder and the girl's love, I'm assuming. And that's kind of how the movie closes out. And then our first mid-credits scene is Zeus not being dead. So Zeus is not dead, and he makes a vow to kill not all gods, but restore his faith, like restore people's faith in gods. And he said, like, they'll have faith in us again, or they'll fear us again when Thor falls from the sky, which I think sets up a Thor 5, which I am 100% on board for. I am really excited, and I hope that happens. But that was pretty much that post-credit scene. Still baffled on how he's alive, but he is the strongest god, so I guess it makes sense. And then the last post-credit scene is Jane waking up in Valhalla, being greeted by Heimdall. So it was really cool to see him again. And I mean, yeah, that's where we close out the movie. I think she's going to come back, just like in the comics, where she comes back as Valkyrie, which was really cool. So I think that's what's going to happen. It'll probably be a while, or it'll happen in Thor 5. Who knows? But yeah, that's the movie. I really liked it a lot. I like comedy in movies, and at some points I will say, yes, it did kind of break serious moments with a little bit of comedy, but some of the points I really cared about, it didn't. Like, some of the more important points I didn't care about when it did. Like, Jane and Thor's reunion kiss and all that. They had their moment, their entire moment, and then it cut to Korg being like, I wonder what they're doing out there. Are they making a lava baby? So it was like comedy after the serious moment. So not during it, but there was another moment in the movie where there was a serious moment and comedy interrupted it. I can't remember exactly where, but it happened a few times. But some of the times that it really would have mattered to me, it didn't. So I was happy about that. But yeah, for me overall, I'd probably give this movie about an 80-85%. I'd probably agree with most fans. There's some things I didn't particularly like, I guess, but I didn't hate it at all. Like, at all. I liked it a lot. I think people are being a little ridiculous with it. So I'm very excited to see where this movie goes. But let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions in the comments below. We can discuss if you would like. And I will catch you in the next one.